Here we go. We are ready to head to Israel. We're excited about the flight. We're going to be on Turkish Airlines. We are here in Chicago and ready to go. Well, that was a quick trip. We just recently arrived in Israel. Let you know we're headed now to get our luggage. We are in the country, but boy, we are ready for sleep. Good morning. Now we've woken up in Israel. We arrived last night, and I had a good night's rest. We're looking forward to the day and seeing all the sights, different things here in Israel. So last night, we slept in Tel Aviv. This is Tel Aviv. So right now, we're in Joppa. It's called Joppa. This is where the story of Jonah took place, as you recall. Here is also the house of Simon the Tanner. You remember the story of Peter and the vision that he had of the animals coming down from heaven in the sheet. This is part of that story. Here we are at the Mediterranean Sea. And this is also in Joppa. And God had told Jonah to go one place, and so he got on this boat in Joppa and went toward Turkey. This is where he got on the boat. And then when all took place, this is also the area that he was spit out on the dry ground and then went to Nineveh.
So that's a four-horn altar. The Bible talks about seeking refuge by someone going up and grabbing the horn of the altar in the Bible. So this is a typical one, not a big altar, which would have been in Jerusalem, because that size of an altar was like 45 feet by 45 feet. That altar, four horns on it.
So here we are in Beersheba, called Beersheba. Beersheba. And as you recall, this is the city of Abraham. This is where he dug a well. Here is the well. And it's about 200 feet deep. That's how they get the water here into the city. This is up on a hill. You can see the area around. This would have been planted in vineyards and various things that would grow in this area. So we're up on a hill. Now you can see here a line that distinguishes between the lower area, or the original foundation of the city, and then you'll see the upper part that was rebuilt, just to give you an example of what it was like. The older part is the ancient part. And this was built by Abraham. So we're going into the city. So all of this is the old city of Beersheba. Now this is the cistern where folks would come to get their water. The water would come up through the bottom, and you saw the well over there. There was the well, and then this is the cistern where water would come, and people would go down, 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 down and get their water from in the cistern. You can see the depth of this cistern. We're going to go down into this in just a moment. So here we go. Going down, going down. So this part that we're looking at is probably about 4,000 years old. We're at the bottom of the cistern and then headed back up. Notice how dry the country is. It's a desert area, very arid. You can see the terrain. We're up in the hills now.
to be the capital of the Amorite who fought with Moses.
Over here, that mountain that you see, well, that is Mount Aaron, Moses' brother Aaron. He was buried there. According to our guide, we're telling all these things from the guide. The height here is about 5,000 feet. It's a beautiful view as you look out. Beautiful if you like dry.
It was the capital of the Amorites.
Well, welcome to Petra. We're walking in. This is the city of Petra. We're walking down actually to the actual city. You might have seen the movie Indiana Jones, or you've heard of something like that. Well, this is the area that those horses went down through. And then you'll see here, the stones that are here are actually part of the old Roman road. You see it here, you'll see it all the way down through this area, the Roman road. We're in a canyon headed down to the city of Petra. Now you can see in the background the large place that's, I think, called the armory, not the armory, the place where they kept the money. Okay? The treasury. And so here we see the treasury. It's not because money was kept inside, but people said, oh, that looks like a treasury. That looks like it would be an expensive place. But so as we're walking down, you could see the treasury. It just kind of pops out at you. So really, on the inside of it, there's a room to the right, a room to the left. There's 3 rooms, and that's all. That's all. It's not a real large place inside. It's just a facade. You'll notice here that everything that is built, it's built out of stone. There are temples, there are different carvings. All of these dwellings were carved out of the rock. Hammer and chisel. That's how these were built. Built by hand. There were no machines involved in creating any of this, building any of this. It took many years to do. Notice here the different forms of transportation that you'll see in this area. It's just fascinating seeing all that goes on, and the ancient and the modern all together. So the next day, that night we slept in a lot, and it is on the Red Sea. And Solomon had ports here in this area that would bring the wealth in. He would get things from different places as he built the temple. This is the Red Sea. You remember the story of Moses and the water parting, and thousands of people walked through the Red Sea. This is the Red Sea. It's a beautiful place. You can see very, very far. Syria, Armenia, a large body of water here. We don't know where the Israelites walked across the Red Sea, walked through the Red Sea. People have different ideas of where that might be, but nobody knows exactly where the sea was parted and where they walked across. So very close to here you can see Jordan, right across the way here. That's Jordan. Yesterday we were in Jordan to go see Petra. The city of Petra is in the country of Jordan. So you see the palm trees out here in the in the deserts, the date palms. We're on a bus traveling, and these are date palms. You've eaten dates maybe. Well, this is how they grow. Where there's irrigation like this, where the water is pumped in, the things will grow. It's amazing. The water's moved into this area. If things are irrigated, the trees will grow wonderfully. But then you can see right next to that, there's nothing. And that's a very normal feature of the country. Here we are coming upon the Dead Sea, and now at the Dead Sea. This is full of salt and minerals. It's an amazing place, the Dead Sea. This is the lowest place on earth, the lowest body of water on earth, both. So we're below sea level here. Notice the instructions. Many people come to swim in the Dead Sea. You'll see some out here. It's easy to float. People just sit back and float. They say if you get water in your eyes, it'll hurt, it'll sting tremendously. Very strong, salty water. A lot of minerals in this water that cause that. You don't really have to try to float. You don't. You just sit back and you float. You can't sink. You just can't sink. You float right on the top of the water. So this is the Dead Sea. Diane and me in front of the Dead Sea. Notice the salt. The salt out here. Chunks of salt. These are not rocks. These are salt. Minerals and the deposits that are there. And here we are at Masada. Very famous place. A place that's revered in Israel. We're going up to Masada from the tourist center down below. You can see the people walking up the footpath all the way to the top. We're, of course, on a tramway. So here is the location of Masada. It was the last stronghold of the Jewish rebels against the Roman Empire, against the Roman army. You saw the snake trail, that small little winding trail. People would walk up that. That was one of the accesses to this place. The Roman soldiers would try to come up to this place to conquer those that were on top, but this was pretty well impenetrable. People up top would throw down rocks. You couldn't overcome this. So the Romans decided to build a ramp. Back over on the other side, we'll see that. It does look like this from the model. And so the Jews stayed here until they realized they would be defeated by the Romans. Here's some of the architecture here. The paint that's there, this is ancient. Herod built this. This actually some of the paint that was here during Herod's time, 2,000 years ago, over 2,000 years. And this is called Herod's Palace. This is part of his palace in this area. Now you see just ruins, but you can see the wide variety of buildings that were here. In the model you could see a lot of the places, the way things are constructed. This is a model of what would have been Herod's palace in the time. We're up on the top up here. So this is the location that the Romans built the ramp. There was a wall that was here, and the Romans used a battering ram. They tried to come in to the city through this way. This is the ramp that they built to finally access the city. Again, from the model, here's what you see. So Romans built this ramp. It took them about 3 years to build the ramp to get up to the top here. Finally, when they had built the ramp and they used a battering ram, they tried to get in. When everything came down, the people came in and captured all of the city. There's a lot more to that story. So now we've moved up to the Sea of Galilee. It's amazing how close everything is. We're at the Sea of Galilee here. And again, now you can see the Sea of Galilee. The day we were there, very overcast. You can kind of make it out beyond the shoreline there. Then moving farther north, Bethsaida. So these are the ruins of Bethsaida. Here you can see how the gates of a city were made. The gates to the city where people would come in, it's like this. So in the city gates, like you'd see here, this is where prophets would come. This is where people would come to hear what the preachers would say, the prophets would say. People would sit at the gate of the city. Kings would come and rulers would come and sit at the gate of the city. And so in Jerusalem, you may have read in the Bible how King David would sit in the gates or at the gate, and people would come. They wouldn't enter the city. They wouldn't have to enter the city, but the king would be accessible to the people that way. And so this is an example of the kind of gate that would be there. So here in Bethsaida, this is a place where Jesus healed a man, and Jesus walked in this area, possibly right here on these very stones. It's very possible that Jesus actually walked on these stones right here in Bethsaida. Now here we are in Capernaum. The city of Capernaum. This is one of the cities of Jesus. There were 3 cities in which, in a triangle where Jesus ministered and did most of his works. He taught in Capernaum. And so this was actually a place where Jesus lived. He did the majority of his ministry in this area. Here again in Capernaum, it's estimated that, say, 5,000 to 7,000 people lived in this city at the time that Jesus lived here. He did his ministry in this city. So 5,000 to 7,000 people here living in this area. Now we're going to look underneath this Catholic church, and you'll see ruins of a house there. That house, that's the normal size of a house at the time of Jesus. This is supposed to be the house of Peter's mother-in-law. You can see the size of the house that would be there. Upstairs here, there's a Catholic church that's been built, and it's supported on all sides so that it's not, it doesn't touch the ruins down here. For many years, I wondered why long time ago you'd hear of a house or a building when it's destroyed. When a city was destroyed, then a conqueror would come in and they would build on top of the other one, build over, and you hear all these different levels. And I thought, why are there different levels? Well, this explains it. Our guide explains it to us. So this first level, there was about 3 feet of stone on which everything else was built. And then on top of that would have been mud brick or wood. And then there'd be a roof on the top of that. And then if you don't take care of the brick and all of that, then it's just mud, and so it'll deteriorate through the weather here, and it'll fall inside. It'll fall inside the house, and so it caves in, And then it's when someone would come in to conquer the city, it was easy just to level the city and build on top of it. So that explains that. It was a revelation to me. Here we are in a synagogue. So this is a synagogue, could be the synagogue of Jesus. This could have been the place where Jesus worshiped, the synagogue where Jesus was. Peter's mother-in-law lived just on the other side. You can see part of the Catholic Church there, so it's really close. And this synagogue was really close to Peter's mother-in-law's house. You see the white stone that's here. This actually is probably not the exact synagogue. I was explaining before that Jesus worshiped here. Well, this was actually built on top of the actual synagogue of Jesus. So you'll see that there are some black stones in a moment. I'll show you those. And that's the place possibly where Jesus actually worshiped. The white stones were a little more modern, were put in later. But this is the location. This is the location that Jesus would have worshipped. So it's the right place. It's just not the right stones you're seeing. There you see the black stones. Those stones are the ones we talked about. The 4th century was a white synagogue, so the synagogue of Jesus is the black stones below. That's where Jesus, the synagogue in which Jesus worshiped would have been. Now we're at the Mount of Beatitudes. This may not be a good picture. The light's a little awkward here. It's coming into the camera. It's behind us. But you'll notice the terrain here, how that there's the Sea of Galilee in the background there. And this area slopes down to the Sea of Galilee. There's Bethsaida over that direction, not too far. And it's very possible that this is where Jesus taught 5,000 people. Our guide here was explaining to us that Jesus may not have stood up here, but maybe down there. And people would have been up on the hill. That could have been an easier way for all the people to have heard Jesus. So Jesus, this is called the Mount of Beatitudes, and so Jesus would have taught people at this place. You remember Matthew chapter 5, where Jesus is giving the blessings. He's teaching many peoples. This could have been the place, upwards of 5,000 people plus women and children here in this area of the Mount of Beatitudes. Jesus said, "Blessed are the," and he gave a long list of blesseds. This is called the Jesus boat. It's not Jesus' actual boat. We're inside, so the video is a little rough, but you can see, we just saw a movie explaining how a man was out here at the Sea of Galilee and he found something. He saw that something was wrong. He didn't know what it was. He began to dig and realized it could have been something ancient. He let everybody know, and over a period of time, the people came, they checked it out, and they said, "Oh, that is a boat." And they didn't know what it was, and so they began to do some research and found out, well, this is from the 1st century, so it would have been near the time of Jesus. This is not actually a boat that Jesus would have ridden in, but it's the same kind of boat, possibly the same size of boat, a boat from nearly the time of Jesus. Notice how small it is. This boat would have been a fishing vessel or a place where people would have come out and gone out into the water. It's a small boat, but it's an old boat, possibly about 2,000 years old, what you see here. Well, we're on the Sea of Galilee now. It's cold today, it's rainy, but it's not too bad as far as being choppy. When we first started off, it was a little rough, and now it's not too bad. This is Tiberias in the background, and You see the lake, the Sea of Galilee here. It's really a lake. It's called the Lake of Tiberias today. There's a lot of different weather in the center. In the middle, there'll be different weather than on the outside. Along the shoreline, boats would be sailing along, and it's very possible that, and it does happen, that this lake, as people would come across it, in the middle it'd be very, very stormy, and you get on the other side and it's smooth again. It's really strange weather. It's a small lake. It's not deep, maybe 150 feet in depth, and so that is possibly the reason the weather can change so fast here. It's cold and wet today. We're in a big boat, but Jesus would have been in a much smaller vessel. And so when the weather kicks up, it would have been tossed a lot. We're in the middle of this lake of Tiberias, Sea of Galilee right now. We left from the east side toward the southeast side, and we head toward Tiberias in the northwest side. You do see a better view today of the same sea. Now we're moving even farther north. This is the place called Hazor. It's an ancient city, about 4,000 years old. You see these ruins? There are levels upon levels upon levels here. There's buildings, and then that was destroyed. Cities were destroyed. Another city was built on top of it. Possibly 21 different civilizations have lived in this spot. Joshua came to this place. He conquered those who were living here. He burned the city. He took the city. And then later Solomon had a city built here for his chariots, horses. So this is a city that, it's a small city, you can see that, but in the area around what the actual city is where a lot of the people would have lived. There are acres upon acres where many, many people would have lived. When Joshua came to conquer the city here, the king here and many of the other kings had the nearby kings around the Sea of Galilee. All of these together, they tried to defeat Joshua, but Joshua was able to defeat all of that coalition. And now we're in Dan, the calves of gold, placed in Dan. We are near the head of the Jordan River. We're not going to be able to see it on this trip. It's too rainy. We can't quite get there. This is one of the gates to Dan. You can't see the gate per se, but this is the access into Dan. Now we're upon the city on the hill of Dan, and you'll see that this is the place where Jeroboam, the northern king, decided to set up an altar and worship. He didn't want people going to the south. He wanted them to stay in the north to worship, and so the division remained. This is the location where the gold calf was set up, behind what you see here. You see where the man's standing right back up in the top up there would have been where the golden calf is. You'll see that in a moment. You see the wire frame here. That would have been another four-horned altar, as we saw before, but about the size of this. See that four-horned altar area. This is a representation. It wasn't made of metal, of course, but this is the location where the four-horned altar was, and then where the calf was. Here again, a closer view of the four-horned altar, a resemblance of that. Of course, it was made out of stone, not of metal. But you can see where it was located. Now we're moving up to where the golden calf was set up. So this is the area of the golden calf. People would worship. They would come here to worship.
for the Jordan River.
The big Jordan River. There it is. Don't blink.
It's
You missed
not a
it.
big river.
It's not a big river. That's true. Now we're in Beit She'an. Beit She'an. Now, this area, the area of Saul, King Saul, would have been, during the time he was ruler, and the end of his reign, he ended up coming back to this area when he died, then his head would have been severed, placed on the walls of this city. You'll see how large this city is. So this is the end of Saul's life here at this area. Well, the city is actually one of the largest cities, the ancient cities. You'll see that as we go through. Here, now down in Beit She'an, this is about 4,000 years old, what you're seeing here. This is the old town. People would have come. This is an ancient restroom, a toilet, where people would have come. They didn't have toilets inside their houses. This is where you'd come to go to the toilet. Go to work, go to whatever else, but this is the bathhouse area. This is what the toilets look like. There was clean water running. See the water down, there's a trough down here that water would have run. It's an interesting thing. And just because we can, I'll show you what this is. The water would have run and disposed of waste back in that area there. It's really surprising how everything was designed. Well, this is you didn't see this. Okay. And here we are walking again through Beit She'an. Now notice the tile, the detail of the tile that's in here. This is from a little bit later time, not the time of Christ, but a little bit later. But notice the great detail of this ancient city. This is one of the pillars. They're a big marble pillar. Earthquakes have destroyed this area. That's why they're laying down. But it's amazing how smooth this is and perfectly round. How in the world this was achieved? There were no machines. We don't know how that was achieved. Then you would also notice a capital here. There's a capital that would have been on top of these pillars. This was all made by hand, all carved by hand. And it's got areas, such detail where how in the world could they have done that? But it's a marble capital. Very, very interesting. Very detailed work. Very detailed. Such exactness that was used here. It would have been set up on top of one of those pillars. This is another kind of pillar, and notice the detail and the carvings there, how beautiful that is. It's amazing how that would have all been done with hand tools. Hands and hammer and chisel. It's beautiful work. And then again, marble flooring, marble slabs down here. And you wonder, well, how do they find all of this? Well, in about 1985, around that time, our guide was here. He said that there was nothing, you couldn't see anything. It was all built up. There was one little area about 3 feet of the top of, I think it was this pillar, that was sticking out of the ground. About 3 feet, just sitting up there, and the ground was that high at the time. Well, people began to be curious, what's down there? And so they began to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig. And as he took more and more dirt out, all of this was revealed. It's amazing how much was revealed.
8,000. Beit She'an was approximately 80,000 people.
You see the 3 levels that would have been here.
So, in a Roman
It has been said that there are about 80,000 people
as high as
in this area.
the 3rd level. Okay? Then also you would have the shades that would have come up from the seats up there to provide shade over the crowd.
People dug all this out, and they were able to find the different levels here. It's said that about 10% of the population could get into one of these theaters like this, so you'd multiply that, and you end up with about 80,000 people that would have been in this city of Beit She'an. Now we've moved on to Nazareth. This is the day after Christmas. We've had a busy trip so far, and here we are in Nazareth. We're in the Church of the Annunciation. They do ask that you don't talk. Hats are removed. Supposedly the place where the angel appeared to Mary. So this is the Church of the Annunciation. This is the place where the angel came down, appeared to Mary, told her that Jesus would be born. So a big church is built on top of this. Now we move over to Megiddo. The Valley of Armageddon. Here we are in Megiddo. The name, now we know it as the Valley of Armageddon, the Battle of Armageddon that will take place here. And this one hill, Megiddo, is in the center of this huge valley. So this is called the Valley of Armageddon. In this place, in the book of Revelation, it explains about a battle that will take place, the final battle, and where the final victory will actually be won. We're up on a hill, up on a tell, and from here you can see miles and miles around. It is a huge area. This valley stretches on and on and on. It's not a small place, but quite a large expanse. So this is where the final battle will take place. This is one of the ancient worship areas here in Megiddo. One of the levels of civilization, they say probably 23 to 25 different levels of civilization that have been discovered right here in Megiddo. Civilization upon civilization built right here. They've found the most recent ones they located were from David and Solomon, but it goes way back, way back, way back. So you can see thousands of years ago, possibly as far back as 8,000 years, depending on the way you calculate things. And this is right here in the Valley of Armageddon. This one particular place, no one knows really when it was established, maybe 5,000 years ago. Some people say as 7,000 or 8,000 years ago. It's just amazing how old this place is, and people have been living in this area ever since. Now we're in Caesarea. In Caesarea, here is Herod's theater. This is the place that possibly Paul defended himself before Felix, before Agrippa. A lot of different occurrences happened here, but Paul gave defense of himself, and he explained what he had been doing, why he was doing what he doing. Many people could sit here at one time. They have a place that a person could stand here to give defense of himself. You can't see it really well. So a person could come up here and speak to the king down here in this area. That's possibly what happened. Or there could have been a drama down here, and people up there would have seen that. So it was a theater, a place where a lot would have taken place. Back over here in the background, you see is a palace. Could be where Paul was in prison, in the dungeon, the basement down there. Paul's appeal. Now the sea that we're looking at is the Mediterranean Sea. You can't see the other side. It's a long way. It's too far to see naturally because of the curvature of the earth.
Another gate on the north side here. There's 3 gates on the north side. This is called the Flower Gate or the Herod Gate.
So here we are in Jerusalem. We're almost in Jerusalem. We're looking over Jerusalem. You see the Dome of the Rock right there in the it's the place where Islam is one of the most holiest places for Muslims. The place where Muhammad ascended to heaven, as the story goes. It's also the exact place that the Jewish people, the Jews say this is the holiest of holies, the temple that was established there. So this is one of the most sacred places, one of the most defended places, one of the most argued about places on the earth. It's a very valuable piece of property. And so this is Jerusalem. There are 4 different religions: Christians, Jews, Islam, and then Armenian as well. 4 different religions in this one city. There are 4 quarters. The city is divided into what's called quarters. Jerusalem. And a panoramic view of that city. You can see the wall. Of the old city. Here's a deaf man. We had a short time to share a few things with him and give him some gospel information. Of course, there are tourist things to do in this area. This young lady didn't like doing a lot of those things, and she did it. Now we're going through the Garden of Gethsemane. Here, this place Jesus prayed. This is a place where Jesus wept over Jerusalem with his disciples. From this area, you can look over and see Jerusalem very easily. You can see the city easily from this location. And so from right here in the garden where Jesus could see the city of Jerusalem and pray. So now we are walking through the Garden of Gethsemane. You'll see here the olive trees that are there, the garden, olive trees. Olive trees grow quite a bit in this area, and they grow round, but they're actually hollow on the inside. They grow and they have little stems that make up the tree, and so it is a very interesting thing. This is the eastern gate. You notice it's all walled up at this time. No one can get in. So now we're headed on the way up to Jerusalem. In the scripture, you'll notice the word up to Jerusalem. Well, this is the reason, because you walk up to go to Jerusalem. Here are the walls. Captain of the city. Recently got a picture with the captain of the city here. He's a well-respected individual, and you can tell by the way the people talk with him here. The guards here, very armored. The police here, you'll see them in a lot of different places. Police are around, they're all over the place to defend, protect. We just came in the Lion's Gate, and now we are in the area called the Pool of Bethesda. You'll remember the story of a man laid at the Pool of Bethesda when the water was stirred an angel came down and touched the water, then people would be healed. Well, one man said, Jesus asked him, why don't you go down? He said, and why don't you get healed? Well, he was laying there. He had no one to help him into the water, to take him down to the water when the water was stirred. So Jesus touched the man and healed him. So, of course, this has been built up since then. There's been many years of construction on top of that. But you'll see the area here of the Pool of Bethesda. People have constructed a lot here. This probably doesn't look exactly like it was in the time of Jesus. But anyway, the Pool of Bethesda. We'll move on in here in just a moment. Let you see this part first. Okay, so we were on the outside here. There were 5 pools in Bethesda, and now you can see a little bit better the different layers, the different time periods that are expressed down through here. You can see this. Now these down here at the bottom, down in that area, would have been possibly the time of Christ. Walking through the city, the old city of Jerusalem. These are the streets covered over now for tourist reasons, for shopkeepers' reasons. Sales everywhere. So it's time to eat. We're hungry. We're going to go briefly into this restaurant. That's what we had. It's very good. It was a big sandwich, chicken, different things inside. Had some hot sauce on it, put a little layer of hot sauce. Oh boy, was it good, and it was hot. It was hot. It's not like, back home, it's not like Mexican hot. But notice how we're seated low here. This is the type of tables that they would have. And the cooks back in this area, they're Arab. Now going into the old city of Jerusalem. You see a lot closer view. We're waiting in line. So we had an opportunity to take a little picture here. So now we're up on the Temple Mount. Very interesting. It had been raining, and then there was little ice actually in the rain, and hail, little bits of hail. It's cool today. And you can look out here and see the Temple Mount. So this is the Temple Mount. It's very flat. And this is where the Dome of the Rock is. You'll see it in a little bit. It's a mosque that is Muslim, a place where Muslims worship. See back through there, that's the mosque. And here we are, the Dome of the Rock. It's related with Islam. We can't go in today, of course, but it was built in about the year 700. Quite ancient. You notice how flat this area is, very flat. It's one of the most holy places in the world. The Dome of the Rock is actually made of gold. And the Jews say this is where the holiest of holies is. The holiest of holies. Right here in this area. We're on the Temple Mount. Another view of the Dome of the Rock. Now we're making our way underground.
Okay, welcome back to the Western Wall. Western Wall, the same Western Wall you guys saw outside. We're a little lower than the outside prayer plaza, about 12 feet lower. And from here you'll see most of the Western.
So this is the Western Wall. It's underground, but there have been years and years and years of construction that now have covered this. So as you can see, we're walking by the Western Wall underground. This would have been exposed at one time. You'll notice the stones cut just exactly like this. This is how we know exactly what it is. This was done in Herod's time. Apologize for the video quality, but we're underground. We're in a dark place. This is Herod's temple. His palace was built in this area. Then later, the Romans came and tried to destroy it. They couldn't actually destroy these stones, so they were left. They're just too big, too heavy. They tried to push them off. They tried to destroy them, but they couldn't destroy them. They're the Islamic construction is on top of this. It's been built up on top of the Western Wall. Now, this has been excavated down this area here, and much interesting history has been located and been found. Again, you can see the Western Wall. We're walking. You see how it is, and there's the top of that. This is actually Herod's temple, the wall for that era of construction. This is just a model of the old city of Jerusalem, the time of Christ. And then we end up at the Garden Tomb. If you look carefully, you can make out two eyes and what, well, used to be a nose, mouth. There, it's an older picture. You could see it much more clearly. Skull Hill, as they call it, place of the skull. There, again, an older picture of it. You can see how it looks like a skull. And this would have been the entrance to the very likely place that Jesus actually was buried, where the resurrection took place. As you go inside, you'll see it looking something like this. Jesus would have been laid here in this area. But it today is empty. We want to thank the Rasmussen family and their, not only Frank and Ursula, but all those that were on this trip for their allowing us to be there with them. This is the entire group on our tour. We're so grateful to have had the opportunity to visit Jerusalem. This is Paul and Patty Karpinko, our guides. Deaf man, I'd ask you to pray for. Thank you.